listening to the Signalman Show on the Brother. We are I'm your host, Josh Irving. Now, you're up to the play live. We don't There we go. JOB on WDCE, Highway of Shadows, the brand new track. That's brand new from the JOB. Highway of Shadows just dropped on the 9th, I believe. Title track. Check them out. The JOBAND.com. JOBand.com. Jim O'Farrell Band right there on the Signalman Show. Folks, great band. Hometown Heroes charting band. Awesome show. Get out and see them and tell them you heard them here on the show. We are hooking up a special nostalgic treat for you on this Veterans Day. I have a Victrola here in the studio. I'm going to explain that next. I'm putting a new needle on it. I just set it up on a little table. We're going high tech and lowest tech at the same time. While we're getting that set, I want to play you a little Hendrix from the Vietnam era. It's Axis, Bold as Love on the Signalman Show. What should you do to keep a friend from driving drunk? Anything it takes. Message brought to you by the Ad Council and WDCE. All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, I've got a very special treat for you. You may have heard previously Officer Dave Johnson on the show, and he stopped by a couple of weeks ago while I was getting ready to host, and he walks through the door to hand me a PSA, but I did not realize this. So he walks through the door, and I see the police officer in the basement, and I thought, And I look out and I see my car is parked okay, and it wasn't on fire, and I was supposed to be there. So I hadn't done anything wrong, but he says, "How you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm okay, how are you?" And he said, "Hey, can you read this PSA?" I said, "Oh yeah, absolutely." I forgot we were a media outlet for a moment there. So he ended up doing an interview on the air, and he's going to be back on December 1st, Saturday, probably around 3:30 p.m. to tell us some of his stories on the force. And we ended up making friends. And he mentioned that he had a couple of Victrolas for sale. And I've been looking for a Victrola. I've been doing a mostly vinyl broadcast for you this afternoon, but the Victrola has been lacking in my lineup. So I said, oh man, that would be awesome. So he sold me one from 1917, and this other one, I don't know what the date of this one is, but it's just awesome. And I wanted to play you the Victrola on the air. And I should mention now that we got all sorts of technology. This is actually streaming over the internet. I'm broadcasting from a remote location, bringing you a live show and doing something a little bit crazy. So we're going to put the lowest tech with the highest tech here. And we got a record, shout out to my buddy Andrew who hooked me up with this record from 1918, or it's a song from 1918. And we're going to listen to it on the Victrola. So it's got a, the big old green moonflower. Check it out. My Instagram is @JoshUrban. I'll be snapping a picture of this. And I'm going to put this vocal mic right up to it. You're going to hear me rustling around a little bit. We're going to hear, let me see what the record says. I'll pull it up. It's a vocal medley. It's a foxtrot medley with vocal chorus, Just a Baby's Prayer at Twilight, The Rose of No Man's Land, Sunrise and You. Ray Benson and his orchestra plays this one. This is off the Decca label, off of 78 on a Victrola. And we're going to try to get back in our World War I mindset here. The sounds of the times. Let me get this set on WDC. I'm just going to sit here real quiet while it plays. Hang on 1 second. Get this going. Get it spinning. There's no electricity involved whatsoever.
grass grows on no man's land, and it's wonderful to see. Though it's sprayed with tears, it will live for years in my garden of memory. It's the one red rose the soldier knows. It's the work of the master's hand. It's the war's great curse stands the red cross where she's the rose of no man's land.
What do you think of that? Is that crazy or what? That is a Victrola right there on WDCE 90.1 FM Richmond and worldwide at WDCE.net. I'm your host Josh Urban, and what that just was is I brought a old Victrola into my studio here and put a microphone up to it, and it clunks a little bit. Not to be alarmed, folks. It's just spinning around there. Absolutely no electricity there, and that was a song from 1918. The Rose of No Man's Land, a World War I song currently recorded. And I hope you enjoyed listening to that on this rather somber occasion. Veterans Day, Veterans Day. What do you say, Happy Veterans Day? No, I don't think so. I saw there was a little bit of a flap on SNL, and one of the main guys there, Pete, made an off-color joke about a soldier who was running for Congress, and the guy won and came on the show, and they made nice and had a little humor to fix things and bridge some divides. And the gentleman, congressman from Texas, he said, when you see a veteran, say never forget, and that's a appropriate greeting today. So you never forget things like September 11th or the sacrifices. And this erases the line between people. I think when we say what he was saying, we say thank you for your service, that puts up a sort of a barrier between civilian and soldier that sometimes exists, and sometimes I guess it poses the question, is distance ever a good thing to remove ourselves from a situation? Makes it less real. I've never served in the military myself, but fortunate enough to know a lot of people who have, related to father's veteran, stepdad's veteran, got uncles, grandfathers, all that, and friends as well. Friends from a variety of wars who have been on the show, who have been on the podcast before. I'd like to acknowledge Pat Harris. He was kind enough to share his story of Iraq and Afghanistan, sort of a brother in guitar arms. He came by guitar lessons and we ended up becoming friends, and he served overseas, and he got to tell me a couple of his stories and how hard the struggle was coming home. And something he told me was that the war is so far away, and here we are consuming and squabbling over petty things, and the war is so far away and invisible, and sometimes a returning veteran can feel kind of invisible. We're so removed, the war has become sterilized, but it's certainly not a sterile thing. My friend Joe down in Richmond, and He has a Purple Heart. It's an award that you would hope not to get. He was in Vietnam. He told me his story here on the podcast and about how he went to college and developed a drinking habit. His grades were slipping, and he got a letter in the mail from college, and he didn't open it. He thought they were kicking him out. The letter was actually saying that he had passed, but he didn't open it. Then he got a different sort of letter, a draft letter. He went down, reported for duty, ended up in the jungle for weeks or months at a time. Finally came back in, wanted some leave, wanted to go to Australia. They were going to send him to some other place. He goes, no, I want to go to Australia. So they finally granted his request, and he ends up in Australia, falls in love with a beautiful girl, drives around, has an idyllic few weeks, and then there's a colonel telling him it's time to go back. He says, I don't have to go back. The colonel says, well, technically you don't, but I can make your life real difficult if you choose not to, so what's it going to be? So Joe went back, and then he was shot. He survived, but what an ordeal. Apparently it was raining so hard on the mountain they couldn't evacuate him right away. Then he came home, ended up working for the railroad, and he's a fascinating gentleman, full of stories, trivia, facts, and always a warm handshake to see you. He's friends with one of my other friends at the place, Theron. She was a nurse in World War II, stateside, worked in a converted hotel hospital in Virginia Beach. And when I was a younger man reading accounts of the war, you would hear about the people killed, but you wouldn't think so much about the people wounded. When I was 18, I started playing in this bar band, and we did a show up at Walter Reed Army Hospital when the war in Iraq was raging, and I met a man a year older than me who was a guitar player formerly, but he lost part of his right leg and most of his left hand. And then I started thinking about the wounded. I always remember helping him up the stairs to see a show and how light he was. Theron cared for the men who were invading Normandy and were shot and lying in the pasture. And you think you were going to be shot, well, it might be nice to lie in a pasture of all places, but there were cattle. So they had wicked infections. Fortunately, they had just discovered penicillin. So they all got a shot of penicillin. Right in the behind, she said, and she laughed. Then the war ended, the hospital closed, they were all sent home, and she told me they all died. Everybody she cared for. They didn't have the right aftercare. I asked her what it was like after World War II. We hear about the greatest generation and the people all joining together for a common cause and overcoming a mighty foe. But what was it like afterwards, I asked. She said it wasn't good. It was sort of an empty feeling and just hard. So, on this Veterans Day, I guess it's good to hear these stories and to see these soldiers as clearly as possible. Sometimes there's humor. I was finishing DJing at a VA home and got to talking to this gentleman who had a World War II hat on. He was telling me about how he was hunting tanks in the German forest with 4 of his comrades, and they would shoot at the tank with a bazooka and then all scatter and then shoot from a different position. And the Germans thought there was a whole platoon of them. They didn't realize there was just 5 guys. Otherwise, they would have turned around and just wiped them out. While he's telling me this crazy story of bravery and craziness, really, his nurse comes in, apparently I've been looking all over for him, and says, "Oh, there you are. I thought you tried to escape." That old guy's kicking butt, even to this day. So, on this Veterans Day, thank you, veterans, for your service. I'd like to say, never forget. Ladies and gentlemen, you're tuned to the Signalman Show. Almost the top of the hour. 1:59 on WDCE 90.1 FM Richmond and worldwide WDCE.com.